Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And if you follow superhero comics for any length of time, you're bound to come across many versions of iconic characters. Between multiverses, relaunches, reimaginings, and reboots, there are plenty of catalysts for those versions. Not all are particularly memorable, some are certainly more noteworthy than others, but by and large, these alternate versions of characters are novelties. They either become iconic in their own right, or they just fade into obscurity once the gimmick wears off. I've talked about some noteworthy variations of major characters before. Ultimate Marvel is still probably the best known. But DC Comics has also had its share of alternate versions of their iconic characters. Superman in particular has had a lot of iterations, going all the way back to the golden age of the early 1940s. But in this video, there's one particular version I'd like to highlight, as well as one particular story that reimagines Superman in a new light. It's Superman Earth 1, a graphic novel written by J. Michael Straczynski with art by Shane Davis. The first volume came out in 2012 and was billed as a modern retelling of Superman's story, sort of like Ultimate Marvel. But, unlike Ultimate Marvel, Earth 1 didn't try too hard to be edgy. It just told a unique story about Superman becoming the icon that we know and love within a unique world. Now, that may sound like a simple premise, but trust me, simple stories are often the easiest to mess up, especially in comics. But this book, and its two sequels, succeeded in giving us a different kind of Superman. And I'm here to argue that Earth 1 gave us one of the best and most underrated versions of Superman in his lengthy history. Now, when the Earth 1 books were first announced, it wasn't immediately clear what to expect. And it certainly didn't help that the timing wasn't exactly great. It was billed as DC doing for Superman what Ultimate Marvel did for their major characters. But at that point, it wasn't a selling point. Because this was also around the time that Ultimate Marvel began to significantly decline in terms of quality, sales, and public perception. By 2012, fans were already rushing back towards familiar, more classic versions of their favorite characters. So Earth 1 had a lot working against it. But when it did come out, it somehow managed to stand out in its own unique way. And it did so without overly deconstructing Superman or his story. Now, the details of that story are not that different from Superman's traditional origin story. He's an alien from the planet Krypton, a doomed planet. His parents Jor-El and Laura Lorvan saved him by sending him away in a spaceship. He crash-landed on Earth in Kansas and was raised as a baby by Jonathan and Martha Kent. Most people know that aspect of Superman's story, and Earth 1 doesn't significantly change or undermine it in any way. But it's what it does atop this foundation that makes it so unique. It begins with Clark arriving in Metropolis. He hasn't yet become the iconic hero we all know. He's just a young man in his early 20s, fresh off a stint in community college. He knows he has superpowers, and he knows he's capable of incredible feats. And yet, he doesn't seem to know where he fits in. Clark goes to Metropolis hoping to build a life for himself and for others. And initially, he puts his gifts to use, interviewing for multiple jobs and careers, from advanced researcher to a football player. And since he's a powerful alien, he excels at pretty much everything. Nearly everyone he encounters is eager to hire him. They offer him more money and opportunity than he knows what to do with. He has a chance to become as rich and successful as he wants. And yet, none of this seems to excite him. Clark Kent never comes off as eager to build immense wealth or become a famous celebrity. At first, he just wants to provide a good, comfortable life for his mother. But even though Jonathan Kent has passed away at this point, his mother doesn't seem to care for any of that. She makes clear to Clark that she doesn't need him to give her the world. She just wants what any mother would want for her son, to see him find something that would make him happy. It's a wonderful testament to just how great the Kents are as parents. But it also fleshes out a different kind of Clark Kent, which ultimately builds towards a different kind of Superman. Because even with all this opportunity, Clark just isn't sure what to do with himself. He doesn't seem to know what'll make him happy or fulfilled. But this doesn't trigger some sort of existential crisis, and it doesn't make Clark cynical or grim or anything. It's just not his style. And that's not the style of Superman either. In that sense, Earth 1 never fell into the same trap as Ultimate Marvel. It didn't try to be different just for the sake of being different. It's just different in how it gets Clark Kent to becoming Superman. And that aspect of the Earth 1 story is unique. Because Clark doesn't don his cape the first time he rescues someone from a burning building, or even when he first crosses paths with Lex Luthor. Instead, Clark has to become Superman in order to confront the same threat that destroyed Krypton. Because in the larger narrative of Earth 1, that threat comes in the form of an alien tyrant named Tyrell. He's no General Zod, and he's no Brainiac. But what he does and how he goes about it adds complications and nuance to Clark's journey. How Tyrell finds Earth? That's actually not Clark's fault. It's largely because the United States military found the ship that brought Clark to Earth as a baby. And by experimenting with it, they accidentally drew Tyrell's attention. And once he arrives, Tyrell basically delivers an ultimatum. Either turn over the ship and whoever it carried, or face invasion, destruction, and devastation. Overall, it's a terrifying scenario of first contact with advanced aliens. It also primes everyone on Earth to become very untrusting of aliens, which does not bode well for an alien refugee like Superman. And while he initially attempts to fight Tyrell's invasion, he doesn't do very well. He may be strong and powerful, but he has little experience in fighting something like this. So naturally, he gets pretty roughed up, casting doubt on whether he can actually stop this. And it's here where he truly embraces the idea of becoming Superman. Beyond just finding the will and desire to be that hero, it also sets the stage for one of Superman's most important traits: his ability to inspire others. Because throughout this story, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen also have a role to play. However, it's not as a love interest, a damsel, or a friend or sidekick. That's another unique aspect of Earth 1. Lois Lane doesn't immediately become a love interest for Superman once they cross paths. She doesn't even become a damsel, which is quite a change for her in stories like this. Instead, this story really leans into her strength as a reporter. Lois isn't some fangirl who just wants to get close to Superman for a story. She actually seeks the truth. That is one of the most defining aspects of Lois Lane as a character. She is the personification of the truth aspect in the truth, justice, American way trinity that Superman champions. And the truth in this story really matters, because it ultimately does play a part in how Superman wins the day against Tyrell. It's not just through strength and power. That's only part of what makes Superman a hero. It's in how he inspires others. And in this case, it's the truth that Lois uncovers that inspires her and Jimmy. And it's because of them that Superman is able to find a way to defeat Tyrell. It marks Superman's first triumph. It also affirms for Clark what he wants to be. He realizes that this is the life he wants to build for himself, helping people and saving lives that would otherwise be lost. That is what fulfills him. This sentiment is 100% in keeping with the core aspects of Superman. Earth 1 just has him get to that point in a new way. And a big part of what makes this story work so well is that the world he's in has reasons not to embrace him. Remember, this world's first experience with aliens was Tyrell, who threatened to kill everyone if they didn't immediately give him what he wanted. Even though Superman saves the day, there's still reason to be skeptical of aliens. That's ultimately what leads Clark to seek a job as a reporter as well. Lois showed him the value of getting the truth out. So he makes that part of his role as Superman. And thanks to Clark Kent, the reporter, Superman the hero starts to manifest in the eyes of the public. From the perspective of the public, Superman is not yet the ultimate paragon of heroism. But the process has begun. And this world that seemed so shallow and jaded in the beginning suddenly has this beacon of hope to look up to. Superman is that beacon now, and he embraces that role. As a Superman origin story, Earth 1 checks all the boxes, strikes all the chords, and covers all the bases. There's no radical divergence, but there doesn't need to be, because Superman's story is just that profound on its own. And at the same time, there's still room for novelty. And it's here where I think Earth 1 really stands out. The Clark Kent this world gives us isn't a version of Clark who's certain of his role. At times, he comes off as very vulnerable and detached from people. He has a good heart and a strong sense of humanity, but he's so young and inexperienced, knowing what he can do, but not what he wants to do. In many respects, this version of Clark feels more human than most. He shows a lot of his own flaws and shortcomings, and how he navigates them is imperfect to say the least. But that makes him oddly relatable. I mean, a lot of people feel lost and uncertain when they're young and not sure what to do with themselves. And even with all his superpowers, Clark Kent isn't immune to that. But seeing him find that place, seeing him become the man he wants to be, as well as the iconic hero we know and love, that makes his story in Earth 1 uniquely satisfying. There's so much more about Earth 1 that's unique, both for Superman and other iconic DC characters. And future volumes do build significantly on this Superman's journey as a hero. And that journey is definitely worth highlighting. I didn't get a chance to talk about Lisa LaSalle. Believe me, I'm tempted. But I'll save that for another video. For now, though, I'll just conclude by saying that Superman Earth 1 had a lot working against it. It came out in 2012, and by then we already had a lot of variations on Superman and his story. But somehow, this one found a way to stand out. It found a way to tell the story of Superman in a way that has only gotten better and more relevant with each passing year. If you're a fan of Superman, DC Comics, or superhero comics in general, I highly recommend checking this book out. I'll leave a Comixology Amazon link in the description. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.